In 2007, David Beckham shocked the football world by leaving the bright lights of Europe for the uncharted territory of Major League Soccer. To many, it seemed like the fading chapter of a star's career, a step down for football's biggest celebrity. But what unfolded was more than just a move to the US. Beckham didn't just change American soccer, he changed himself. Once football's golden boy turned bad boy, his MLS journey became one of redemption, legacy, and a new beginning. This is how Beckham's final act rewrote his story forever. But first, let me give you some context. Prior to his move to the MLS, Beckham had been extremely criticized for the vast majority of his career. He was painted as England's biggest villain after his red card in the 1998 World Cup, he was pushed out of his boyhood club Man United after his relationship with Sir Alex Ferguson completely deteriorated, and in this case, many reports indicate that he got a boot thrown into his face, which resulted in a nasty cut that needed stitches. Lastly, his tenure with Real was also controversial. While it would be extremely unfair to sit here and call him a flop, he was brought in as a star signing without any planning on whether he would improve the team or not. Beckham was by no means a defensive player, he always thrived as an attacking midfielder or playing on the flanks, and Real was already stacked in those positions. As a solution, the club decided to get rid of Makelele and start Beckham, Figo, Zidane and Raul all at the same time. Although enticing on paper, this version of Real Madrid couldn't find any defensive stability and lost many matches that caused them to stay trophyless for almost 4 years. To make matters worse, in his last season in Madrid, out of the first 9 matches Beckham started, Real lost 7. He was at odds with the manager, with the board, and by January 2007, his departure was already sealed and signed. To be fair, he had a pretty good final third of the season, which earned him back his place in the starting 11. Like I said, it's hard calling him a flop, and it's important to set the record straight for those who weren't following the sport back then, but in all essence, you can't call his tenure in Real a success, since it pretty much coincided with the worst slump the club has experienced, at least in the past 50 years. Besides, his inclusion made Real tactically weaker. It's not his fault, but at the end of the day, it's his name that has to take the blame. By the end of the 2006-07 season, Beckham was in a very similar situation to Neymar when he left PSG. Both enjoyed a flashy lifestyle, both were still extremely skilled players, but despite only being in their early 30s, it looked like the curtains were closing on them. Many European clubs still dreamed of having them in their squads, but their high wages, consistency issues and egos limited their options, so they both departed to millionaire destinations in need of credibility. You can't really compare the two investments, as Beckham initially receives a considerably lower wage than Neymar, but the hype that Beckham generated far outweighed the buzz the Brazilian star created. Besides, Neymar has been nursing an injury since the start of his tenure, while Beckham tore the house down right from the get-go. Before he even stepped foot in the US, his new club LA Galaxy skyrocketed the number of season ticket holders with 11,000 new purchases, and sealed a 5-year partnership with Herbalife Nutrition worth around $20 million. And when it was time to actually play, Beckham showed he didn't come to America to collect checks. In his MLS debut, David Beckham put over 66,000 butts in the Giant Stadium, an arena mostly used in American football that, whenever it was used to host the New York Red Bulls matches, it rarely sold more than 12,000 tickets. And those people surely got their money's worth that day, as they witnessed what many consider the greatest MLS match of all time. In less than 8 minutes after the initial whistle, Beckham bagged 2 assists to turn the match around. That lead would dissipate in the beginning of the second half when the then prodigy striker Altidore gave the lead back to the Red Bulls. But Galaxy wouldn't stay down, and they managed to tie the match again after being down 4-2. That match wouldn't have a happy ending, as just 2 minutes before the final whistle, the Red Bulls scored the winning goal in front of a raucous crowd. Many haters speculated that Becks was finished as a player, and I was just moving to the US to become a movie star. Little did they know that the final years of his career would produce several dramatic matches like this one, and that his final chapter could rival the best Hollywood redemption stories. Still, I would be lying if I said that everything was all sunshine and rainbows. Beckham missed many matches during his tenure in LA. For a while, his form was outstanding, and there was a big chance that he could play for the Three Lions in South Africa for the 2010 World Cup. However, a nasty Achilles tendon injury suffered in March 2010 stopped him right in his tracks. To make things worse, he suffered that season-ending blow while on loan to AC Milan. Yeah, that was the thing. Despite being under contract with LA Galaxy, Beckham spent the MLS off-seasons away in Europe training with different clubs such as Arsenal or Tottenham. While those two cases were simply publicity stunts and attempts to remain fit and competitive at the European level, his runs with Milan were much more than that. Initially, Beckham was supposed to play with the Rossoneri, but only until the 2009 MLS season started. But after impressing Carlo Ancelotti, Beckham and Milan decided to extend the deal until May. The Americans could probably forgive a lot of things to a superstar of David Beckham's caliber, but that ordeal was seen as a massive disrespect to Galaxy and its supporters. In 2010, Beckham would do the exact same thing. But this time around, his run in Italy and his subsequent MLS season would end with the aforementioned injury. At first sight, that looked like the end. An embarrassing downfall of one of football's most controversial icons. But similarly to an Oscar-worthy movie, this story had to have a plot twist. Despite hearing from his own national team manager that no matter who coached England, Beckham's time was over, Beckham dusted himself off and went right back on the grind. Now a deep-lying playmaker, Beckham was a complete player no MLS team could stop. So with the help of Landon Donovan and Robbie Keane, David Beckham finally led LA Galaxy to the top of American football. This was by all means a storybook ending. He proved his doubters wrong, and at 36 years old, no one expected him to push his body any further, especially after suffering such a devastating injury a year prior. But Beckham kept going. In 2012, his performances were arguably even better, and Galaxy steamrolled their way into the MLS Cup final, where they performed a second-half comeback and defeated Houston Dynamo. This would be Beckham's last match as a Galaxy player. The perfect send-off, but once again, Beckham wasn't ready to give up. He wasn't ready to stop feeling the rush whenever a free kick flew right into the net, that match-winning assist, and the echoes from the crowd. Maybe his MLS chapter was closed, but his career certainly wasn't. Beckham craved one last Champions League match, one last dance in Europe. So he joined the newly reached PSG on a 5-month deal and announced that all his wages would revert to charity. This was no longer about money or fame. The same things that everyone thought were the main instigators of Beckham were the very things he rejected when he knew his time was up. Obviously, Beckham didn't show the same skill he did as a Man United player. He looked and played like an old man, but the fire was still there. He was one of the best men on the pitch in his quarter-final matchup with Barcelona, and he had the privilege of winning one last championship. The very first that kick-started an unprecedented era of dominance in French football. Finally, on the 12th of May 2013, in front of a packed Parc des Princes, Beckham assisted one last time and hung up his boots, applauded by his peers and rivals. It was an emotional farewell that I cannot post in its entirety here, but I really recommend that you watch his last 5 minutes on the pitch. If there were any doubts about how much Beckham respected our sport, his 3 final seasons vindicated his worth. It almost reminds me of how Ronaldo keeps going after the 1000 goal mark when he's already conquered so much that many consider him the greatest of all time. He's literally the most recognizable human on the planet, yet he keeps getting pissed in meaningless Saudi matches. That's a passion that I honestly can't comprehend, but it amazes me every time. Beckham knew his time was up from the moment Real opened the door to his exit. Despite being well aware of that fact, Beckham gave back to the sport and revolutionized a league that had no future nor visibility. After his arrival, it became common practice for many athletes to choose the United States as their final destination. Henry, Lampard, Pirlo, Gerrard, Drogba and many others joined the MLS and brought eyes to the product that the league would never be able to get in any other way. Of course, not every player showed the same tenacity as Beckham, but before the MLS could produce many exciting youngsters, it had to gain notoriety and money. Beckham brought that credibility and in the process proved how much of a draw it truly was. As the years have passed and other incredible talents rose to stardom, Beckham has lost some of his relevancy. So it's important to let the younger generations know that Beckham might not have been the paciest, strongest or the most consistent player in history, but his sniper-like passing and vision set him apart in a world of tough British blokes. A guy who was vilified and accused of disliking the sport played until his body wouldn't let him anymore, far away from the glitz and glamour of his younger days, only for one last rush. If that doesn't make Beckham a certified legend, then I don't know what the fuck will.
What do you think? Let me know your opinion in the comments, as I always go through every single one of them. Drop a like to help push this small channel to more football fans like you, and subscribe to never miss another upload from Throne FC. Thanks for watching until the end, I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one.